So this is why the room doesn't look as full. Everyone else was running for vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go for somewhere in the neighborhood of an hour or so. Each of these candidates you're probably not as familiar with them as you may have been some of the others. They're going to give a 2-minute spiel. I've emphasized the 2 minutes to each of them so they all understand whether they'll abide by it or not. We'll find out in a moment. And then I immediately want to open it up to you since there are so many candidates. There's a limited amount of time. So after the last candidate is done, I'll open it up to the audience. And if you, by some chance, don't have questions, I have plenty. So let's start. We're going to start up at this end with Melissa Byrne. Introduce yourselves and then 2 minutes.
Thank you for being here, the hardy numbers that are left. Let me thank you. I'm running for a lot of reasons, but one of them I think we can all identify with, and that is we've won campaigns, we've lost campaigns. We've lost Republican candidates before, but I don't like losing to this guy. I don't like it. And I think it's very important for us to focus. Let me quickly on my background. I've been active in the party, I was going to say my entire adult life, but then I remembered that's inaccurate. I actually started out when I was 10 years old giving out leaflets on a corner in Brooklyn. I, of course, then moved to South Florida because that's actually in the law. You have to do that. I started out as a young Democrat in college. I eventually became the county chair in South Florida for a significant amount of time. I also was the Democratic chairman of Florida. I've been serving on the DNC for a while, and I'm very privileged to have been elected by the Southern Caucus of states, representing them on the executive board of the DNC. So I've always been involved in the party because I care about issues. My life has been, I guess, 2 parallel tracks. One is the party, one is issues. Whether it's voter suppression, which I've been very involved in fighting it, so much so that I'm very proud, and it's actually in my resume, that I was attacked by Rush Limbaugh personally for uncovering a voter suppression deal by the Republicans. I also was one of the originators of the presidential recount of Florida in 2000. But I have to give my son partial credit. Let me also say, although I run on both tracks, there are 2 issues I talk about that are very important. One is a mentorship program specifically for new members. We've talked about money. It costs nothing. Do it every 4 years. And I would love the opportunity, as I've shown in my emails, to talk more about districting and reapportionment, because I think that's starting from the bottom up through winning legislative seats. You can't win Congress if you don't win legislative seats who make the line. So let me just say that's a second issue I'd like to explore a little bit longer, but I've made my life about being for social and economic justice. Thank you.
All right, as I said, if you have questions, line up right now. I'm going to get the audience into this right away. Try to get as many as we can in the next 30 to 40 minutes.
Hi, I'm Lawrence Saxon. I'm a DNC member from California. The Republicans have made a strategy out of making sure that elected officials pick who gets to vote. They do that through gerrymandering, they do that through voter suppression, they do that through creating all sorts of obstacles to casting a vote and registering to vote. We, I don't think, have done a very good job of explaining that a democratic value is that voters should select our elected officials, not elected officials should select our voters. We also haven't done a very good job of making that part of our message, part of our fundraising priorities, part of what we do every day in and out in terms of our party. So I'm going to ask each of you, first of all, do you agree that this needs to be one of our articulated values? And second of all, how would you help effectuate that?
I really appreciate the question, because as I referenced in my opening about reapportionment and districting, it is the core reason why I am running for this position. We've seen what happened. We see efforts in Wisconsin, and we see whether the courts are going to get into it or not. We need to change the formula. We all talk about the same boilerplate. We talk about that there are 33 Republican governors. We talk about that there are 25 governors who control both their House and their Senate. Democrats have 5. Something has to change. Something's not happening right. We are behind. We are behind. Because Republicans have been working this effort for 10 years, and we're first discussing it now. That is the wrong approach. We need to go through reapportionment. We need to begin from the bottom up. That sounds very trite, but it's not. We need to make sure that we develop time, so if we can win legislative seats and so forth, as I referenced. Let me tell you about Florida. A few years ago, we passed something called the Fair Districts. Florida is a purple state most of the time, not all the time. And because of that, we proposed something of which I was part of as an attorney and as a Democratic chairman locally and as an activist anyway. And what we did was we wanted to put something on the Florida ballot, a constitutional amendment which requires a 60% passage rate, which we passed far in excess of that. But before that happened, we knew the Republicans were going to go after the language, try to keep us off the ballot, because everyone felt confident that we would pass it. They failed in all the courts, so we established some good law that everybody else can use, hopefully. And then it went on the ballot and passed way in excess of 60%. Now remember, both houses are Republican. So now they were behind the eight ball. It passed Fair District. It's apple pie. So they came back to the court with, of course, a terrible plan, of course. Finally went back and forth so much where the court basically said, you got 30 days or whatever, you better come back with something or we're going to write it and you're not going to like it. So they came back with something that was still terrible, it just wasn't as terrible. And because of that, in this not-so-great cycle for us nationally in Florida, we picked up 2 congressional seats and a few legislative seats in a not-good cycle with a not-good plan. This needs to be part of a permanent, not long-term, a permanent situation in this DNC. It needs to be. There needs to be staff dedicated and dollars dedicated. This will help in blue states, but it's really going to help in red and purple states even more so. And the reason for that is if you help people running for the legislature, we all squawk about that. We can't win back the House in one cycle. The number's too big, and that's correct. It's going to take a number of cycles. But in the meantime, maybe you pick up a few legislative seats. Maybe you pick up some lower seats. That's how you build a bench. And over the next few cycles, we then catch up, and then you can contest
Mr.
it.
Ceasar, we have to move on. We can't have the whole history of Florida today. Okay.
So I won't talk about the recount either. So
Okay.
reapportionment, probably the most single important issue we can tackle. Thank you.
Thank you. Latoya Jones, go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks so much for running. I know this isn't easy. And when we talk about the Democratic Party and who's doing the work, a lot of times it's those folks in the Central Committee. I didn't know what a Central Committee was until Howard Dean ran and told us to get involved. It was a bunch of crazy people in my county, and I was like, oh, wow, it is what it is. But we joined. And I know some of you guys are state party chairs and electeds. What have you done locally, not just the state party chairs, that clearly you had worked up the ranks to get to where you are, but there are a lot of people here running, not just for this seat, but other seats who we have no idea where they've been. You talk about voter engagement and involvement. The people that are going to actually do the work that is implemented by the DNC are at the Central Committee meetings on whatever day of the week it is, however many times a month. And if you don't understand the basic infrastructure of that and the experience that goes with that, I think it's important. We talk about changing direction here and turning the tide of the Democratic Party, which I agree with. But unless you know the foundation and the blueprint, you can't just get rid of everybody. You can't throw all the bums out. Some of the bums are actually pretty good. And I want to know what you've done locally to understand that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, two of you there.
First, let me thank you, and I will attempt to answer the question as narrowly as I can, because I think the question is, what have we done in reference with the local party? So I appreciate the question. I want to first thank my sister for asking it. Only kidding. It's okay. It's everybody. We're all brothers and sisters. I've been the Democratic chairman in South Florida, specifically Broward County, which is the largest Democratic county in Florida, for a very long time. And specifically, I understand the relationship of looking from the bottom, because I worked from the bottom up my whole life, from looking from a county perspective to see what the relationship is with the state party and the national party and back down again, and the difficulties with that. What I've done, and I term limited myself, I was Democratic chairman for 20 years in a county of almost 2 million people. So that takes a lot of time, which I did with love. And specifically, that's about understanding relationships, raising a lot of money, because it's a big county. It's about mediating disputes. We had, when I left, 950 precinct committee people, 31 Democratic clubs, which at times seemed like 3,100. And You have to rise to the occasion. You have to be able to manage a good organization. You have to be able to do press. You have to be able to raise money. All those things I've done continually for many, many years. It's also about standing out of your shell as the chair of a local party and dealing with issues that affect everybody in that area. I did that with violence, racial tensions in the wake of the last couple of years, and held community forums. That, I thought, was imperative to making the community stronger and also showing people across my county what it was about, that we were tackling real issues that affected real people on a regular basis. That's also part of being a chairman on a local basis, and I've done that. I think it's a tough job, but it's one that I think thoroughly prepared me to run for this job. I'm running for vice chair specifically because of that training and because of all the things I've done over the years for the local party, but also because I realize we're in the toughest rebuild that I could ever remember. The next 4 years will be the toughest ever. There are no more White House, holiday parties to go to. This is a 4-year tough rebuild. That training, I believe, prepared me for this.
Thank you.
This can be a yes/no. First of all, I want to say this is the first time I felt optimistic since Election Day at some point, so thank you. I'm very optimistic because of the incredible panels we've had already, your panel. So my question is, will you commit to continue dialogue at these meetings? I don't want to be talked to. I want to engage in this way, listen, dialogue, as well as working groups. Like, sign us up. Some of us know more about fields. Some of us know about... That's what we need to do at these meetings, and we'll come to more than a couple. So it's that general engagement. That's my first question. The second one is, will you
You're killing me.
No.
You're killing me.
These are yes/no. These are yes/no. So my other one is, will you... There's only one that's going to win. The others need to remain engaged. How will you do that? Oh, 3. I'm sorry. Oh, nice. Oh, see, I'm getting educated from the... We're getting... open.
So we get it.
So will you
of
keep each other engaged
All right.
and help with the chair's candidates who do not?
Got it. Okay. Go ahead, ma'am. You're next. Real quickly.
Hi. I stood up when you were talking about acting locally, and I want you to please think globally. And so on behalf of the millions of Americans overseas and how many might be watching you streaming right now, I'm the chair of Democrats Abroad, and I want to know what you would do on the executive committee to help us find more of the millions of Americans overseas who are not voting, but when they vote, they're going to vote Democratic, and how are we going to bring their votes home? Thank you.
Great. Very concise. Chairman Ceasar is up now.
Very concise.
Very concise.
Very concise. I agree about the dialogue because I've complained about it for a long time. Often I go to a meeting and hear others as well say, why did I come? Why did I spend the money? Why did I spend the time? The dialogue has to increase, so does the back and forth with validity to the members from the chair and from the officers. So I totally agree with the dialogue. It's long, long overdue. This is our window of opportunity to fix it. Democrats abroad, we have to remember not only dedicating a staff person, but it's also about a budget. Not just because we're up here pandering, but specifically because a lot of the Democrats abroad are registered in swing states. And it makes a difference. There are millions of Democrats abroad. Figure out what swing states they are. They deserve the same consideration other entities we give consideration to, because that could put us over the edge. Thank you.
Thank you.